My name is Royal Mayo. I am actually 39. I've been 39 for 11 years now. And I've been an advocate for about 2 decades now. I do consulting work and advocacy work through the NAACP. But as of September 2016, I'm actively not doing that right now. We got a new state president, so we'll have to see when the new president takes over if I have any role in that. I've never been elected to public office, but I've been a very public person through my advocacy work with the NAACP. So I've met with the president before, meet with state senators, state representatives, U.S. senators, congressmen, mayors, city council persons, school administrators. So I advocate all over the place with every level of government, every level of public official. I was local president of the NAACP before I ever took, actually I take that back. I was a state executive committee member about 1.5 years before I became local president of the NAACP. So, and actually still living here, I haven't been the president since 2010 locally, but I still do a lot of advocacy work here because it's right on me. So whether it's school policies, whether it's hiring policies and practices, or somebody being fired from their job, a lot of times I get called in to kind of sometimes mediate, advocate, depending on the situation and what the needs are. I get called for local issues like that as well still.
Give me some examples of issues that you get involved with.
A person may feel that they should have been promoted on the job, and a person with less experience got promoted, and it could be because of their age, it could be because of their sex, it could be because of their race. And they'll come in and we'll have to go over it and see what happened. And here's the thing, an employer doesn't have to talk to me if they don't want, but they normally do. And when they don't, we just turn it over to the OCC or something like that. So that's a federal agency and you have to talk to them. So I'm kind of like the mediator before the government mediation that you'd have to go through. I got involved in NAACP. I was asked to join the NAACP originally back in like '93, and I just bought a membership. But then I was asked again and around 99, 2000, and I joined again, and I've been an active participant and member ever since then. I decided to run for mayor because I think it's time for a change in the city of Steubenville. I think I have a lot of ideas and a lot of energy that can make a positive difference in our community. I'm a Democrat, 100%, but the local Democratic Party, there's really no place in leadership for African Americans at this present time in the local Democratic Party. I'll just say it. They're never going to say, well, we want you on this board, because I'm going to try to fix things. I'm going to try to correct things. That's why I got no endorsements from the major powers that be, because we don't want Royal. He's going to want to open the books. He's going to want to advocate for change. He's going to say we did this wrong, and this wrong. And that's an assault on my legacy. We're the 6th Congressional District. I live in the 4th Ward of Steubenville. Each ward councilman or each congressional district member, representative, comes to the table in Washington or in Steubenville and advocates for what's needed in his particular community. So as 4th Ward councilman, my job would be, I'll come to the table with the other 5 ward councilmen and the councilmen at large and say, hey, listen, this is what we need here. This is what we need: a grocery store downtown. We need access to public transportation downtown. We need our streets paved downtown. And the 6th Ward councilman from the West End, he would come and give the same thing for his ward, and so on and so on and so on. I've seen for a long time, it just didn't seem that that was the agenda of the ward councilmen that we've had in the past. We spent $4 million on parks and recreation. We had 3 town meetings. We had one at Eastern Gateway, we had one at Harding School, and we had one at the JFK building. After we had those 3 meetings, they decided to spend all the money on 2 parks. Bellevue Park and Jim Woods Park. Didn't spend any money downtown. Actually had $2.9 million. They spent an additional $1.7 million, so it came to over $4 million that they spent. 4.6, I believe, and none of the money got spent at the Martin Luther King Center, the North End Park, Murphy's Park, or Beatty Park. And I just felt at that particular time for that issue that the councilman for the 2nd Ward should have said, no, I'm not voting for anything that doesn't include major improvements for the park in my ward, which is Murphy's Park. The 4th Ward councilman should have said, no, I have the Martin Luther King Center and North End Park, both in my ward, and I want them to receive some of that money. And the 1st Ward councilman should have said, no, I have Beatty Park, and I want some of that money spent in Bay Park. And the councilman at large, who represents all of them, should have said, and that would have been 4 people. No, we're not spending all $4.5 million in 2 parks while we neglect 4 or 5 other major recreational areas. So the voting just seems to be funny, that how could that possibly happen? How could the 4th, 2nd, and 1st Ward councilman do that? City government. And there's certain people and players who have agendas that don't have the best interests of the people. It depends on who present the idea and how it's presented. Like, it could be no for a good reason, or it could be no because you're protecting the interests of someone else. You know, there's always a reason for whatever somebody does. Sometimes the answer is no because it wasn't their idea. You know, I had a grant about a decade ago for $75,000 for exercise equipment for the Martin Luther King Center. They told me no because one of my caveats for that was the weight room has to be free. So they turned down the grant. The weight room is still very poorly equipped, and now it's free anyway. So the no was, well, we need to generate money from this, but they were charging a disproportionate amount of money for what they had in there. Now we got Planet Fitness, and you can pay $10 a month, and they got millions of dollars worth of equipment. So now the Martin Luther King Center is free, because how can we compete with that? And we lost the opportunity to get the equipment. Not only the appointments that I'll be able to make, but the fact that I'll have the microphone, and I'll be over the meetings, and I'll be able to steer the conversation, and I'll be able to adjust the agenda. So the things that are going to be talked about in those meetings, I'll have a say in what they are. Whether it's, you know what, you guys are going to vote, but we know Memorial Day is when summer starts for kids getting out of school. We need to set a deadline for the pool to open on Memorial Day and not mid-June or July. And we know most pools close on Labor Day, and that's the last day of swimming. We need to set it to close on Labor Day. Those are just basic things that you can just talk about to make sure they happen. You know, everybody says, again, let's look at the budget. And again, with the microphone, I don't get to vote, but I'm not going to let 7 people sit there and tell us how important the kids and recreation are and never put any money into that budget. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to say this is what's important to me, but then you take the money and put it over here. So those are things the mayor will have influence and impact on by being able to steer and guide the conversation. What you just said, they've been doing their own thing that has absolutely nothing to do with the community. While at the fort, the only thing there is the fort. And you heard him reiterate several times, downtown, 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 downtown. That's his area, that's his focus. I've never seen him at a board of education meeting that has to do with schools. I've never seen him at a recreation board meeting that has to do with recreation. I've never seen him at a housing board meeting that has to do with public housing. I've never seen him at a water board meeting that has to do with the public water. So my thing is, when you become mayor,
Have you been to all those meetings?
every one of them, every single thing, I've never seen either one of them at a county commissioner meeting. Now, they may be going now because they want to be mayor. But as far as the public interest, I've never seen them meeting with the firefighters until they want to vote from the firefighters. So my thing is, the things that you have to do to be a mayor and the things that the mayor is responsible for and tied into, all of those areas I've been at for 2 decades. I've never seen either one of them there one time until the last maybe year when they both decided they wanted to be mayor. So now these are your things you're interested in. Treatment, because here's the thing. They say this is where the people are getting arrested for dealing drugs. They're coming from New York. They're coming from Chicago. They're coming from Columbus. They're coming from Cleveland. They're coming from Pittsburgh. New York is 8 million people, largest city in the country. Chicago is 3 million people, 3rd largest city in the country. There's no fences or gates in the Steubenville. You're not going to stop the flow. Forget that. You have 1 policeman to every 400 citizens. Let's say if you doubled that, then that's 1 policeman to every 200 citizens. Now, you say that only 1/4 of them are working because there's 4 shifts. So that means you have 1 policeman to every 1,600 people at any given time. How in the world are you going to stop the flow from coming in if you don't curb the appetite for what it is. Because the way it works, if you arrest 10 drug dealers from a particular area where they're coming from, and they find out you arrested them, 10 more is on the way to replace them. That's how it works, because they figure it's fast money. I got more of a chance of getting away with it in Steubenville than I do in Chicago or New York. And it's more money for the drugs in those areas because there's so many more drugs and so many more deals in those major cities. They get so much less profit. I'll take the chance to come to Steubenville because the technology is not up to what it is up there. There's not as many policemen as it is there. So I'll take my chances in Steubenville. So if just thinking you're going to arrest it away, and they were on both sides of the coin because they never had an opinion about opioids until after the first debate when I talked about it. Then they started talking about opioids, and then they said, like I did, you can't arrest away the problem, but then they continued to talk about how they want to arrest away the problem. It doesn't make sense. And more about treatment. You just been consulting with a company that's interested in coming here. I've actually met and talked with Trinity to actually rent space in the old hospital to put some beds in there with their treatment. We have our own doctors. We have our own plan. We already have facilities that are open in other parts of the country that we want to bring here. But we're trying to get through the red tape to actually open a facility. There's nothing close to here. You know, I talked to local judges and I said, yeah, boy, we have nowhere to place people. We have no beds. We tell people when the bed's open, we'll send you. But what is that person going to do in the meantime? A person is really addicted to drugs. What are they going to do? They're going to abuse drugs. And every day that goes by, they're that much closer to death. Well, let me tell you, when you talk about policing, the NAACP seems that a lot of times to be at odds with police. And the reason for that is the way certain neighborhoods are policed. You need community-based policing, which means you bring the people in to be a part of the effort to stop crime. But you have to treat people a certain way for them to feel like they're part of what you're trying to do. And it also has to be in accordance with that neighborhood wants to do. You can't just impose your will on people and then expect them to help you. You have to talk to people. You have to take some of their ideas, and you have to do it sometimes in accordance with what they believe and what they want. For instance, if you got a drug house on Bray Barton or on Lover's Lane, the person that lives next door to that house doesn't care about your sensationalized raid that you're going to televise. They just want it to stop. I don't care if the person goes to jail. I don't care if they go on vacation to Hawaii. I just don't want drugs in my neighborhood. So if I call you and tell you I think somebody's selling drugs next door to me, don't set up a sting that's going to take 1.5 years while I go through hell. Put a police car in front of the house. So people come to buy drugs keep driving. People in the house that's selling drugs get spooked and flush them down the toilet. So I don't need you to have the sensationalized raid. I need you to stop the crime that's in my neighborhood next door to my house. That's what I want. Let me say this. I think fair housing laws. Here's the thing. There's no HUD houses in $1 million developments because nobody buys a $1 million development, builds a $1 million house and puts it on HUD because they won't get their money back. The only reason a HUD house can go into a neighborhood is because the houses ain't worth that much, and that's why you end up with HUD neighborhoods. But here's my question. If I'm poor and I live downtown in a HUD house, it's something that somebody does that's dangerous, then why do I have to live by what makes the people who want to live on Bellevue Boulevard anymore and people that live downtown that I have to live by but you don't? Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like why is your neighborhood, I own my home on Highland Avenue. If there's a HUD house in my neighborhood because somebody could buy it for a low enough price that low income people can live in it, what makes somebody who wants to live on Bellevue Boulevard any better than a person that lives on Highland Avenue when it comes to affordable housing? So what stops people, you may have a $10 million listed in New York. There's no HUD houses in that neighborhood or in that building because nobody can pay. HUD's not going to pay a $10 million rent. So if the house is $10 million, the rent will be $70,000 a month. What about the values of the home of the people where HUD housing is located? Mm-hmm. So it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. If your house was worth more, there wouldn't be any houses rented by HUD in your neighborhood. Or if you're wealthy enough, then buy the HUD house and do what you want to do with it. But if I own real estate and I want to rent a house and If I can, like, if you live in a neighborhood that somebody can buy a house for cheap enough to put it on HUD, then you ain't living in the neighborhood you think you live in. So if low income housing means crime, then where does the low income housing supposed to be? You don't put it anywhere. It goes where low income housing is affordable. That's where it goes. There's no particular plan. My solution is employment. The water's turned off in my house, and I have no way to bathe and even clean my clothes to go on an interview. And I have no lights, I have no electricity, and I have no gas. That's the breeding ground for crime. Example, you got low-income housing, public housing. You got the concern powers that be. When a drug test the people on public housing in low income, but not drug test the people making the decisions. So we're going to drug test the person, and the goal being, under the auspices of doing good, that we don't want anybody in public housing on drugs. But what you do is, I'm on public housing and I have 3 kids, and I take a drug test and I got marijuana in my system. So I lose my public housing, I lose my income assistance, and I lose my food assistance. But I keep the kids. How? What's the justification in that? Now, you want to make a drug dealer? Take a 15, 16-year-old young man under his mother's roof, and they get evicted. And the local older guys in the neighborhood are selling drugs, and they have nowhere to go. They have nothing to eat. And an older guy says to him, sell this, $50 a piece. By the end of the day, you'll have 1,000. Bring me 500 back, and I'll give you another pack. He's going to do it, and you just got yourself a drug dealer. So you could save $800 worth of benefits to this single mother with 3 kids. So that's how you make a new young drug dealer. It's not up. I think we need to do better. We need to focus on what we do good. Like I said, our schools are excellent. We have the university here. We have 3 different nursing schools here. 3 nursing schools. My sister works for the VA. She said they're hiring 500 nurses at the VA in Augusta, Georgia. Why not bring our congressman in who brings us nothing and say, Congressman Johnson, why don't you get us some federal money up here to improve our schools and create a pipeline of students who would come here from other parts of the country, because if I come here, there's a 100% placement with VA jobs. And we could, just like they do with other places, you come here, you get your education, then you go off to school. You come here, and if we're going to be a college town, let's really be one. We got 3 people at Channel 9 right now that went to Kent State. Kent State is known for their media. So people come from everywhere to go there to get in the TV. So why not, between our 3 schools, come up with the actual degrees that are needed. Let them work together. Come up with the degrees that are needed to place these people in medical facilities for the VA as nurses. And that would be one way to generate not only people coming into town that's going to school, but also the staffing that would have to be put in place to actually educate these people. If you're looking for a job in a particular field, you try to get into the school that's known for people succeeding in the field that you're going into. So if, like you see a lot of schools, 90% job placement after graduation, that's something that people say, oh, that's the school for me. So if you say, hey, listen, if you graduate from school and your grade point average is this, and you do this, and you do this, and you pass this test, we got a job waiting for you. You'll be able to pick the VA center you can go to. People say, oh, why would I go to this school and then have to look for a job? If I go to that school, I already have a job. So being that we get nothing else from like these military bases and all the subsidies they get to help their communities, why not our congressman cut that deal for us? Cut that deal for us, for our 3 schools we have here in this district. My grandmother on my father's side moved to Steubenville in 1921. It's my hometown. It's where I grew up. It's where I went to school. It's where my mother went to school. It's where my father went to school. My brothers and sisters. You know, we're just Steubenville people. You know, it's my connect. It's where I'm at. It's where I'm from.